international effort to combat the threat posed by ISIL. Already allies have joined us in Iraq, where we have stopped ISIL's advances. We've equipped our partners and helped them go on offense. NATO has agreed to play a role in providing security and humanitarian assistance to those who are on the front lines. Key NATO allies stand ready to confront this terrorist threat through military, intelligence, and law enforcement, as well as diplomatic efforts. And Secretary Kerry will now travel to the region to continue building the broad-based coalition that will enable us to degrade and ultimately destroy ISIL. So taken together, I think the progress we've achieved in Wales makes it clear that our alliance will continue to do whatever is necessary to ensure our collective defense and to protect our citizens. So with that, let me take a few questions. I'll start with Julie Pace of the Associated Press.
Thank you, Mr. President. I wanted to go back to the situation in Ukraine. If this ceasefire does take effect and appears to be holding, would you and your European counterparts back away from these sanctions that you say you've prepared, or do you feel that it's important to levy these sanctions regardless of this ceasefire agreement? And if I could go back to the Rapid Response Force, can you say specifically what U.S. contributions will be in terms of troop numbers and equipment? Is it beyond the agreement that you announced, or the proposal you announced in Warsaw?
With respect to the ceasefire agreement, obviously we are hopeful, but based on past experience, also skeptical that, in fact, the separatists will follow through and the Russians will stop violating Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity. So it has to be tested. And I know that the Europeans are discussing at this point the final shape of their sanctions measures. It's my view that if you look at President Poroshenko's plan, it is going to take some time to implement. And as a consequence, for us to move forward based on what is happening on the ground with sanctions, while acknowledging that if, in fact, the elements of the plan that has been signed are implemented, then those sanctions could be lifted, is a more likely way for us to ensure that there's follow-through. But that's something that obviously we'll consult closely with our European partners to determine. I do want to point out, though, that the only reason that we're seeing this ceasefire at this moment is because of both the sanctions that have already been applied and the threat of further sanctions, which are having a real impact on the Russian economy and have isolated Russia in a way that we have not seen in a very long time. The path for Russia to rejoin the community of nations that respects international law is still there, and we encourage President Putin to take it. But the unity and the firmness that we've seen in the transatlantic alliance in supporting Ukraine and applying sanctions has been, I think, a testimony to how seriously people take the basic principle that big countries can't just stomp on little countries or force them to change their policies and give up their sovereignty. So I'm very
What about in Iraq?
pleased with the kind of work that's been done
went over there
throughout this crisis in Ukraine. And I think U.S. leadership has been critical throughout that process. With respect to the Rapid Response Forces and the Readiness Action Plan that we put forward, in Warsaw I announced $1 billion in our initiative. A sizable portion of that will be to implementing various aspects of this Readiness Action Plan. We've already increased, obviously, rotations of personnel in the Baltic states, for example. We have the air policing, we have the activities that are taking place in the Baltic and the Black Sea. But this allows us to supplement it. It allows us to coordinate it and integrate it further with additional contributions from other partners. And what it signifies is NATO's recognition that, in light of recent Russian actions as well as rhetoric, we want to make it crystal clear. We mean what we say when we're talking about our Article 5 commitments, and an increased presence serves as the most effective deterrent to any additional Russian aggression that we might see. Angela King, Bloomberg.
Thank you, Mr. President. What are your specific expectations for what regional actors like Saudi Arabia, Yemen, and Jordan can legitimately provide to a coalition against Islamic State? Is there a role there for